You see, most people believe that home ownership and real estate investing come later in life. Like after you make a lot of money, after you have a huge down payment saved, after the market comes down, after a crash happens. And because of that, there are millions of people just staying stuck renting, waiting for a moment that never really arrives, right? So, but there's a strategy that quietly, allows everyday people just to buy sooner, reduce their housing costs, and just begin investing at the exact same time. And of course, you saw the title of the video. That strategy is called house hacking. And today, I want to explain it. I want to be clear. I want to show you how it works. I want to tell you why banks allow it. And also want to look at a couple of examples so you know what numbers, if you're house hacking, actually look like. I'm going to tell you some of the dangers of it as well. So here, with no shortcuts, I just want to give you clarity, hopefully a peace of mind, and hopefully you learn some stuff. Let's dive right in. If you're returning to this channel, I just want to say thank you. Thank you. If you have subscribed already, thank you. Thank you so much. If you have liked the videos, I highly, highly appreciate it. Thank you for coming back. If you're new to this channel, if you care about home ownership, about long-term stability, and if you care about making wise financial decisions, I invite you to like this video and subscribe and leave a comment. Tell me about your investment plans. Tell me, which topics in real estate you would like to know more about. Tell me what you like and what you dislike, what you agree with me on, what you disagree on. Just tell me. Let's talk. I'm okay with it. A lot of things I'm still learning in the process too. So, and that's fine too. But share your experiences, because that's powerful. I'll read your comments, but other people will too. And this channel exists to bring people together and learn, not just through my experience and my knowledge, but probably through yours too. So here you have no burdens, no pressure, just a community being built, hopefully to grow financially and also grow in real estate. So thank you for being part of the community. With that being said, let's just get into it. See, at its core, house hacking is very simple. You buy a property as your primary residence, and that's important. It has to be your primary residence. You live in part of the house, wherever that happens to be, and then you rent the rest of the house or the rest of the property, whatever it is. That's it. That's the simplest definition. You buy a part, you rent the other part. But what makes this so powerful is how banks view the purchase. When you live in the property, the bank does not treat it like a traditional investor. They treat it like a homeowner with access to better loan terms, lower down payments, and just more flexibility. It really is. House hacking isn't about gaming the system. It's not a cheat code. It's about understanding the system and just using it, to your advantage. One of the biggest misconceptions that I hear is this. I can't house hack, or I can't do this because I don't have 20% down. In many cases, that's simply not true. When you're buying a property again that you plan to live in, even if it's a duplex, a triplex, or fourplex, lenders, often they allow you just a much lower down payment because they know you have money coming in as well. So depending on the loan type, you may be able to buy with as little as 3.5% using an FHA, or maybe 5 to 10% using a conventional loan. Sometimes with VA financing, you could even do it with 0% down if you qualified, of course, for VA financing. So the key factor isn't the number of units, it's the owner occupancy. This single detail just changes everything. Again, I'm going to keep emphasizing it. It is a property that you choose to buy, and you also choose to live in it. The bank treats it differently. It's just a different ball game. When people hear the term house hacking, they often picture, just one thing, buying a duplex and renting the other side. That's often what they see. This is one way to do it, of course, as I mentioned before, but it's far from the only way that you can house hack. In reality, house hacking is a category of strategies, not a single move. And understanding the different styles it just matters, because not everyone starts in the same place. Not everyone has the same budget or the same lifestyle or even the same tolerance for people or space. That's important. Your age matters in what your mindset is, your family unit matters, all of that matters. So let me walk you through the most common and most realistic way people's house hack. But again, there are multiple different ways that people can house hack. First is the classic, which is the multifamily property, as we've been talking about. The most straightforward form of house hacking is just buying a small multifamily property. This could be a duplex, as I mentioned before. This could be a triplex, which now is 3 units, or even a fourplex. My first property that I purchased in Boston, Massachusetts was a triplex. I lived in one and I rented the other units out. You live in one unit and you rent out the others. What makes this approach so powerful is that from a lender standpoint, from the bank standpoint, a 2 to 4 unit property is still residential. It's not commercial, as long as you live in it. That means you often qualify for better loan terms, lower down payments, and more flexible financing than someone buying just a pure investment property. I know I'm repeating myself, is intentional, is important for you to understand. See, because this version of house hacking also, often needs more separation and privacy than other methods, because you are in your own unit and you rent the other units out, but you're still dealing with people. It's still your home, and you're still in close proximity to what everything's happening. So it is the most popular because of the options, but it also gives you your own space separate from the other people that you're going to be renting to. However, the most accessible option is renting out bedrooms. And this is very common. This is a very, very common and practical form of house hack. And it's okay too, right? You buy a single family home and you simply rent out the bedrooms, the spare bedrooms. So you don't need a duplex or triplex or fourplex. Even with a single family, you're able to do this. You don't need a special property type, right? You buy a regular home, you live in it, and you rent out the rooms individually. This works especially well for first-time home buyers, extremely well for young professionals. Also works for people that are comfortable sharing common spaces, especially if you live near a hospital or an airport or those kind of or university. It works great. For many, this is the easiest entry point into investing before going to larger purchases, right? Because again, multifamily requires more money as well, because they tend to be more expensive. But this way, it's simple, it's flexible, and it can drastically reduce or eliminate your housing costs for a season. But again, you have people living in your community. Hence, this third way that I'm going to mention, creating a separation within a single family unit, if a single family home, also is possible. You can see this as well, right? Some people, they want to house hack, but they don't want to share a kitchen. They don't want to share, a living room, right? They want their own separate space, and that's where, separate living spaces within a single family home come into play. This could include, for example, if you have a garage in your single family, convert it. It's called a garage conversion. Creating or having an in-law suite that it just completely separates together in the house, but has its own entrances and so on and so forth, right? Or if you have a basement, make that into an apartment. Or having a portion of your home have its own entrance and own utilities. It could happen. The goal here is simple. Create a space that feel like it's its own unit, all those together in your own property, right? When this is done legally and thoughtfully, this approach gives you more privacy, give you a stronger rental appeal, and it's flexible, right? A flexibility for the future that you really need. Sometimes you really want, you want your own space. So this is often a great middle ground for people who want rental income without feeling like they're consistently living with tenants. One of the most powerful but misunderstood house hacking strategy involves accessory dwelling units, or you're gonna hear them referred to as ADUs. These are completely separate living units on the same lot as your primary home. Think about it this way. A small backyard cottage is one way, you see those in certain areas. Or if you have like a detached unit within, again, your property, or a converted garage that meets legal requirements. So ADUs are especially attractive because they offer long-term flexibility. Today, they might be a rental. Tomorrow, they could be a family house, a house guest. You could house guest. If you have aging parents, ADUs are great for that because they're not inside your home, but they're close to you as well. In places like South Florida, rules around ADUs exist and must be followed carefully. But when allowed, they can significantly increase both cash flow and property value. Another method is called the reverse house hack. Here's a version that, people, you don't hear this a lot, right? But it does exist. And in some cases, homeowners, what they choose to do is that they rent out the main house. You have your single family house, you rent out the main house, and then you choose to live in the smaller unit, whether it's an ADU or garage. You choose to live there and rent out the entire house. This is sometimes called a reverse house hack because of that. Instead of you having the main house, you have the smaller place, right? So it's more aggressive and it requires careful attention to loan rules and local regulations. But for people that are focused on maximizing their savings for a short season, it can make sense. The principle is the same. Live on less, let the asset work harder for you. The next one is multi-generational living as house hacking. See, not all house hacking looks like tenants and leases. In many families, house hacking takes the form of multi-generational living. A larger home, separate spaces, share expenses. You form a financial perspective, and the math can be very similar. Lower per person housing costs, share responsibility, long-term equity building. This approach often aligns deeply with cultural values and family priorities and just faith-based stewardship. In other words, get together with your family and buy a property with your family and share the space with your family, right? You could divide them, you could, however you want to split it, but everything remains within the family. Of course, you have to deal with the family. You know your family, whether you can deal with them or not. That's a decision that you have to make. But everything stays, within the family. So it can work great. Again, check your local rules and regulations before you make any decision on spending any kind of money by listening to some stranger on YouTube. So call your lawyer, call your realtor in your area. If you're in South Florida, I would love to represent you as well. If any of these methods are something you never thought about, let me know in the comments. Let me know if you have done house hacking before. Let me know if what has worked for you. Let me know your experience with tenants in your home or outside, or let me know if you need to know more information about how to do house hacking and you want to have a one-on-one consultation. Let's make this happen. Let's make some money. Then again, before you get too excited, right? Let's slow this down a little bit. Before you run off and start thinking that house hacking is always easy. Again, I want to slow this down just for a moment, especially for those of you that live in South Florida. Because while house hacking can be powerful, this market comes with a few realities you absolutely need to understand up front. This isn't to discourage you. I just want to give you all the information as much as possible in this short video. And I want to give it to you up front. Hopefully, it's to protect you. First, we have to talk about HOAs. Yes, the first gatekeepers in South Florida. HOAs are everywhere. In Florida, period. They're everywhere, especially in condos and townhomes and newer communities. And here's the truth most people learn too late. Many HOAs do not allow room-by-room rentals. They don't allow short-term rentals. They don't allow multiple unrelated occupants or renting separate portion of a single family home. Some associations also limit how many units can be rented, how long a tenant must stay, or whether rentals are allowed at all during the first year of ownership. So, before you ever make an offer on a house, I should say, thinking about house hacking or plan to house hack, just keep that in mind. HOA rules must be reviewed very, very carefully. One line in the bylaws can make or break the entire strategy go wrong. So before you buy, read the fine lines. In this stage of my life, being honest, I'm not a particularly fan of HOAs. That's just my mindset. I will go deeper into that in a different video. But there's some great HOAs out there. There really, really are. Others are not so great. There are many that have been in the news for doing some horrible things to their tenants. So just be very careful when you look at an HOA and make sure that you plan, if it is involved house hacking, that you have those conversations even before you fall in love with the property, even before you fall in love with the area or the house itself. Just read it. Just ask for the bylaws up front and just know what you're getting yourself into. Ask for a lawyer to read it for you or with you, a lawyer that specializes in HOAs or, of course, in real estate. You might be saving a lot of headaches just by just paying someone, whatever the rate is, to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, first thing, if you're in Florida, before you start thinking about house hacking, be careful with HOAs. Look for a good one. They are out there. Second thing you have to be aware is about zoning and use. Essentially, what's legal versus what's possible. Zoning is super important here in Florida, and probably no matter where you are, probably is important there too. So be careful. Just because a space can be rented doesn't mean it's legally allowed to be rented. South Florida municipalities have specific rules about what qualifies as a separate unit, whether a garage conversion is permitted, how many kitchens are allowed on one lot, and whether a property is zoned for multiple households. This matters very importantly, especially if you're considering the in-law suites that I talked about. If you're considering the garage or an efficiency conversion, if you're thinking about renting out to part of the house or part of your single home, just figure out what the zoning regulations are. Doing this the right way, legally and insurably, matters far more than doing it fast. Also be aware that ADUs, they are allowed, but not automatically, right? They generate a lot of attention, and it's for good reason. But in South Florida, ADUs are defined, they're regulated, and location specific. Some areas allow them, some restrict the size, placement, or usage. Some require permits, impact fees, and design standards. So, and even when ADUs are allowed, financing, insurance, and resale still applies. There are conditions for all of that still applies. So ADUs can be incredibly valuable, but only when done by the book. Don't skip a step. It's gonna hurt you later. Trust me on that one. Last but not least, on this section, is just insurance. Insurance is another big factor in this market. So depending on the property type, your insurance costs can vary significantly, especially for multifamily properties, older homes, converter spaces, or properties with multiple units. Some insurers are more cautious with non-permitted conversions. Multiple kitchens is important that you check on that with your insurance, or just a mixed layout. If you have one of those, again, check with your insurance. And in South Florida, where insurance have become a major expense, all of Florida, insurance has become a major expense. This needs to be part of the conversation just early. Not at closing, let not this be a surprise, because this is going to matter for your numbers to actually work and for you to come out ahead on the other end. So I share all of this because house hacking done carelessly, it creates just stress. You don't want that. House hacking done wisely, that's gonna create you some really good options. So the strategy works, but only when it's aligned with, again, HOA rules, zoning laws, and just local ordinance. Again, last but not least, check with your insurance. This is why guidance matters. And this is why every house hacking plan needs to be reviewed properly, property by property. Don't assume that, and make sure you review it with someone that knows what they're talking about. Let me interrupt your video just for a moment, just to say, if you are considering investing in real estate, whether you're buying a property or maybe renting the one you already own, or maybe converting the house you live in into a rental place, or if you're thinking of anything in real estate and that you need a realtor, I'll be happy to be that connection for you. Call me, my information is in the comments below, also is in the description as well. I would love to have a strategic session with you just to brainstorm and to see where you're at and how we could work together, achieve the dream of financial freedom that maybe you're thinking about. So thank you for the moment. If you have not done so, please subscribe to the channel. I would love to be part of your world as we continue to impart information to you. Thank you, and let's get back to the video. So now that you understand the different ways people use to house hack or are house hacking, and that you understand how there could be limits to also house hacking, no matter where you are, the next question becomes, what would the bank actually approve? And how does financing really work when rental income is involved? Let me break that down. So let's talk about qualifications, because this is right now, this is really where house hacking really shines. When you apply for a mortgage on a multifamily property that you're going to live in, again, many lenders will allow to consider future rental income from the other units. That's a sweet spot. Typically, they'll use about 75% of the projected rent to be conservative, right? They kind of use about 75%. So let's say the total monthly payment on the property is $4,200. If the other units can reasonably be rented at $3,000 in total, right? Then the lender may credit you with about $2,250 of that income. That means, on paper, your housing cost is no longer $4,200. It's closer to $1,950. That adjustment alone is often the difference between denied and approved. This is why house hacking isn't about earning more money, but it's about structuring the deal intelligently, so you could become a homeowner and an investor at the exact same time. Let's look at this fourplex example. Let's bring this to life. What does a number actually kind of look like, right? Imagine that you find a perfect property, and imagine that it's a fourplex, and you bought it for $900,000. You put 5% down, which is about $45,000. That means that your total monthly payment, including taxes and insurance, comes out to roughly about $5,400. Now, You live in one of the units and you rent the other units for $1,700 each. That's $5,100 in monthly rent, which means that you only have to come up with $300 per month plus utilities. Everything else is paid by everybody else. You're not eliminating your mortgage, you're dramatically reducing your exposure while building equity in a large asset. That's a strategy, and that's why it's so beautiful. Again, you have this property, these 4 units, you come up with $5,100 for the entire unit, but out of that, you only pay $300, and the whole thing is yours. Beautiful. This is where house hacking stops being a housing solution and starts becoming a long-term plan. This is why it works so really well. And many people, beginners, they like to begin with a 4-plex. You could do 2-plex, 3-plex, but 4-plex also works really, really well. Just as I said before, they live there for a year or 2. They learn how to manage property. They stabilize the rents. They build equity in that 4-plex. Then they move. What happens? Well, the first property becomes fully rented. Now it's supporting itself or close to it. Then what do? They purchase another small multifamily, maybe a triplex or another 4-plex if your county allows it. And they just repeat the process. And little by little, in a few years, you could have 10 units easily. This is how people quietly just accumulate multiple properties over a time that is not rush, but the sequencing just allows them just to keep moving, and you could really build some serious wealth doing this process. We can also talk about appreciation, right? Because appreciation really is the wealth that you don't feel day to day, that you don't see in your bank account, but it builds, right? So cash flow just helps you breathe. But appreciation is what builds long-term wealth. For example, if a $900,000 property that you purchase appreciates just at 4% per year, that by itself is $36,000 an increase in value annually of that property. You didn't save that. You didn't work overtime for it. You position yourself to benefit from it. That's why time in the market matters more than time in the market. You have heard that expression many times before. Hopefully you have. Time in the market beats time in the market. Let me give you another example, but this time let's do it without the multifamily property. Let's look at, and these are realistic examples, by the way, of real house hacks that you can do. Let's say you're just renting bedrooms. Maybe you have that single family, right? Let's say that instead of buying that 4-plex, you decide to buy a single family. Maybe that's what your budget allows, and that's okay too. The point is to get started, not necessarily how many units you have. Get started. That's right. So single family property. This is often how first-time buyers, start because, inventory is larger, the process feels more familiar. So instead of $900,000, let's say you purchase a property for $500,000. Maybe it's conventional, unoccupied, down payment is 5%. That will be then $27,500. The loan amount then becomes $522,500. After mortgage, taxes, insurance, and PMI, your total monthly housing payment comes out to approximately $3,600 per month. At first glance, that number can feel heavy, especially compared to rent, but now this is where the hacking strategy comes in, right? So house hack, you could set it up this way. Maybe the house has 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. You live in the primary bedroom. You rent out the other remaining bedrooms. And let's keep rent conservative, and of course it varies depending on where you live. But 1 bedroom you rent at $1,100. Both bedrooms, let's say you rent at $1,100. That's a total of $2,200 per month. And you have another spare bedroom as well. So the real cost of living this way, again, Total house payment is $3,600 a month. Rental income that you get from house hacking is $2,200 a month. So you effectively can own a home and only pay $1,400 per month. Often, that's less than a one bedroom apartment, of course, depending on where you live. Here in South Florida, that's a steal. So you could still own a $550,000 asset and build equity every single month that's going to be paid by someone else. That is truly a bargain, and that is something that you could truly use to build your wealth. So what if you rent all 3 bedrooms? What will happen then, right? So $3,600 a month, and you rent each bedroom at $1,100 a month. You could potentially pay your entire mortgage or have someone else pay your entire mortgage, and you can live rent-free. Yes, there's room to discuss about dealing with tenants. There's room to talk about what happens when you don't, or you're not able to rent, every room. So again, buying is important, location is important, and understanding the laws in your county is also important. So the next logical question is, how do banks view this scenario? And from the bank's perspective, this was still a primary residence, not a business. It's not a, you don't have an industry, you don't have a company. It still is your primary residence. That's why the down payment stays low, interest rates stay favorable, and the approval process just remains straightforward. In some cases, lenders may even consider a portion of your projected income during the pre-approval, depending on documentation and guidelines, making qualification even easier. That's why house hacking is so popular. It's so legal, which is important, but it's important that you know how to do it and you know how to do it right. But as I mentioned before, of course, there are trade-offs. Of course, they are. And this approach is not for everyone. I just want to give you my honest perspective. You're sharing a space. You need to have clear boundaries. You have to be good at managing people, not just numbers. So for the right person in the right season, this trade-off can dramatically accelerate progress, right? So whether it's a fourplex, whether it's a single family home, whether you're trying to use some creative ways to house hack, the principle stays the same. You want to reduce your personal housing costs while owning an appreciated asset. Again, that's the most important thing. Somebody else is paying for your asset to appreciate. That is the heart of house hacking. If you're renting right now, I understand some people have to rent, and sometimes renting is more beneficial depending on the market, depending on your condition, depending on your finances. But remember, as you pay rent, you're also paying somebody else's mortgage. You're helping someone else build equity. You're making somebody else rich, which is okay because you're getting a benefit in your rental unit as well. But if they can do it, you can do it too. Of course, like everything else, there are downsides to house hacking. I've mentioned some of them already. When I repeat myself again, I want to be honest in all my assessments, as I always do. Make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into, right? So let's do a balance. So house hacking isn't effortless, right? You live with tenants. Your privacy may be reduced for a season. You are responsible for maintenance and communication. You also need to understand zoning and insurance and local rules. So this strategy just rewards patience, maturity, and planning, and not impulsiveness, but people that have a mind for business, not just think about the money. But it can work really, really, really well as long as you have the right team also on your side to help you with it. The scripture reminds us, whoever walks in integrity walks securely. So if you have integrity, house hacking, and you do it right, when you do that right, that wisdom and integrity that you already have isn't reckless, it's proper stewardship, and it's choosing stability over stress and intention over impulse. So you could do it. One of the ways that I like to see this, like I approach a lot of things this way. I think, so many people are able to do it. I'm not smarter than anybody else. I don't necessarily think people are smarter than other people. I think they're just more experienced than other people. So, but if other people can do it, if millions of people have done it, could I learn this? Probably. Could I use it to my advantage? Yes. So can you use it to your advantage? Yes. Is it important to understand the trade-off? Yes. Is it worth it? Oh, yes. Of course, I am a realtor and I love real estate and I love making money with real estate. And I just want the exact same thing for you. So to end, let me give you these takeaways. I want to give you some takeaways, something that you understand about this whole video. The first one is, house hacking allows you to buy with less than 20% down. It uses rental income to help qualify. It reduces your housing costs dramatically. You can build equity while living your life. You can create options for your future. It's not a forever style for most people. It's just a season. It's just something that you transition, something that you still own. And I'm a big proponent to holding real estate as long as possible, as long as it makes sense, certainly. And it's a strategy that can work for you as well. So if you have made it this far, again, I want to say thank you. I genuinely appreciate you spending your time here with me. Again, my goal is this channel isn't just to explain real estate. It's really to help you understand it and feel less overwhelmed, more confident, and have a peace of mind as you make your decisions in real estate. So if this video helped you, hopefully it did. Hopefully help you bring some clarity about house hacking. Help someone else. Share this video with your friends that are maybe young, maybe in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and they're thinking about this. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, ask your questions below. I want to hear from you. I'm eager to understand where your mind is when it comes to real estate. Is house hacking something that you would do? Is house hacking, something that you have done, or you would maybe tell people not to do? Whatever it is, share with me in the comments. I would like to read what your thoughts are on any of this, right? Sometimes conversation can change the direction of someone's life. So I would love to hear from you in the comments. Again, would you ever consider house hacking? Does the idea of living next to tenants, feel too much? Let me know. I read every comment. There are also some strategies that you could avoid dealing with tenants as your house hack, but leave it in the comments. I could tell you more about that then. So, next video I recommend that you watch is, can you still buy a home in 2026? And I just talked about in that video about how you could use saving strategies, a changing mindset, and how the discipline that you use to buy your first home can also be used later in the investment properties that I'm talking about right now. So again, thank you for being here and supporting this channel and for allowing me to be part of your journey. And remember, God loves you and so do I. I'll see you in that video.